All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome. Maggie will be doing our wonderful Code of Ethics training, and I get to present to you what it means to be a Miami member. So what does it mean to be a Miami member? You've now joined the Miami Association of Realtors, but you're also a member of NAR, National Association of Realtors, Florida Realtors FR, and more. I want to make sure that you're participating. So we'll give a second to Audrey to send info, and then I'm going to continuously make you a part of our presentation and ask you questions. So be sure to use that chat. As a member of Miami, you're a member of NAR. And here we have a QR code that can take you directly to NAR's page. But also that icon that you see on top, that's an NAR member resource icon, which is available to you through the Miami Gateway. So if you've logged in to use the MLS using Miami Gateway, miamirealtors.com, you're going to see that that's one of the icons on that Gateway dashboard. That is a single sign-in button that was created by Miami Realtors just for you to be automatically logged into NAR. So you can click and get membership information. The National Association of Realtors was founded in 1908 in the city of Chicago with 120 founding members. It is the largest trade association in the world with over 1.5 million members. Its headquarter location is in Chicago and Washington, D.C. And I love to share their information. Their mission statement is, and I like to make this a part of you and what you do, is to empower realtors as they preserve, protect, and advance the right to real estate property ownership. By the way, you as a business should have a mission, vision, right, statement for you. So you could use something like this as an idea. By the way, you can also change those, but it always helps you as a business to have these. Their vision statement is, our vision is to be a trusted ally, guiding our members and those they serve through the ever-evolving real estate landscape. You might choose something like that and become the ally for your customers. They also have a diversity and inclusion statement, which to me is simply fantastic. NAR fully embraces perspectives from all walks of life, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, religion, age, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, national origin, socioeconomic status, political affiliation, or any other qualities by which we may define ourselves. This is part of what it means to be a member of NAR. The value of membership. Political clout through fundraising and campaign contributions. You can find out more about RPAC by visiting miamirealtors.com and searching RPAC. Making your voice heard by lawmakers and regulators in Washington, D.C., fighting that fight for home ownership and the ability to invest in real estate. The campaign ads, look for the R, offering reassurance, resources, and reliable guidance, which is what you provide to your customers. The realtor benefit package that you can access through that link and info that I provided before. And then my personal favorite. How many of you have gone to realtor.com? Let me see that chat light up. How many of you have not only gone, but you've searched for yourself as an agent? Did you find yourself and did you create your profile? I saw Leo said no. I saw that Julian. I saw, ooh, you guys are just loving it. Yes, thank you so much for participating. So as an instructor, right, one of the things I like to do is give you homework. So if you have not visited realtor.com and created your free profile, please do. It is a free member benefit because you're a Miami member and an NAR member. It is also the website most widely used in the United States for those looking for a realtor. So why shouldn't you have yours? By the way, if you can't find yourself up in the top, there's an area to contact realtor.com on the bottom of the page, go ahead and do so and take some time and invest in yourself into this and go ahead and create your realtor.com profile. It's key essential. You need to add your photo, all of your links and information. And then as soon as you have deals occur, rentals, sales, etc., they will reflect on that page. And it's also a page where you can go ahead and do what? Ask for what? What do you do when you finish with someone? You finish working with someone and you tell them to go to realtor.com. You got it, reviews and referrals. So build up that free realtor.com page and use it as part of your presentations in the future. I'm set up, I'm a realtor, here's my profile, here's my activity, and get yourself some reviews. All of this quickly just by visiting realtor.com. And then, of course, they provide us the ever important code of ethics, which our magnificent Maggie will be providing to you probably starting about 11. Yes or no, Maggie, that you're going to join us for that and give them the best out there.
I'm already here, so I'll give them the best I've got around 11.
That's fantastic. You guys are in for a treat for that code of ethics with Maggie. Of course, we're going to talk about realtor. So how many of you have heard this realtor? And do you know how to use the trademarks? Are you a realtor or realtor associate? All of these are great questions. So let's talk about how you could use this wonderful word. 5 key facts. Realtor equals member of NAR. It's the term should never be used to substitute real estate agent. Non-members may not use the realtor marks. Design standards for realtors exist. You must follow them. Members can use realtor trademarks with limitations, and the realtor marks can be used for internet marketing. So let's talk a little bit about what you shouldn't do, and then, of course, what you could. You should not use it as an adjective. In social media, you should not use @luxury realtor. Not for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, TikTok, nope. For web domains, you should not use it as neighborhoodrealtor.com. In an email, bobthebestrealtor@gmail.com, or in some biz, realtor services. These are the no's. You cannot use it as a place, @Realtor of South Florida. Web domains, miamisbestrealtor.com. Email, Karen@miamibrowardrealtor.com. And Sunbiz, Miami Realtor Services. And here's my favorite. This is what you can do. This is probably the one that you want to take a picture of because it's nice and simple and sweet. You can use it with your name and as punctuation. So Nancy Fernandez, realtor. On social media, @nancy.fernandez.realtor. Email, nancyfernandezrealtor@gmail.com. And web domains, nancyfernandezrealtor.com. I'll take a second here in case you're interested in taking a pic of this so you know how to use it appropriately. Realtor or realtor associate. All righty, now on to the next one. Trademark information is available, though it's here on the screen, to you at miamirealtors.com/orientation. For questions regarding professional standards, you can contact professional standards at miamire.com. But Maggie has a whole set of info for you before you do that, and you'll get it through your code of ethics. So you do have NAR marks info and trademark protection. And where is that? miamirealtors.com/orientation. You're also a Florida Realtor member, and Florida Realtors says this: for realtors, by realtors, who we are and what we do. They've been established for over 100 years, and they work with the association and more to offer you information and data. As a member of FR, you of course get the benefits of being a part of Florida Realtors. You can get an everyday email with business information. You have access to the ever sought out Florida legal hotline. access to free updated forms. Most of you will need your as is or other forms, and they have them available through you through Form Simplicity. You also have discount programs that you can find out about. There's an icon right from your Miami Gateway dashboard directly to FR. And you also have access to the latest market research. How many of you know that when you present, you're going to have to give market research information? Well, you can join us for a market stats with matrix, RPR, and more class. All of the trainers give that class where we provide you and show you how you can use infographics and some stats for your presentation. Florida Realtors also provides incredible infographics that you may use for your social media, including items such as how and what are the steps to purchasing or selling a home and more. Florida Realtors. And now my favorite part, I got to welcome you to Miami with over 200 products and services that are readily available for you to use. So many professionals waiting to engage and work with you, available to you on Zoom like we are now, at our office locations and more. I want to give you a round of applause, right, for making it this far. How many of you are proud to be realtors? Let me see that chat light up. Happy, proud. Do I see any clapping? Let's see that chat. Look at you guys, even some dancers. I love it. Excellent. So what does it mean to be a Miami member? Well, you now belong to the largest local association in the nation. It says 60,000 here, but we're up to 65,000 professionals. We are and have been around since 1920. We're made up of 6 organizations: the Residential Association, Miami Realtors Commercial, Broward Miami, JTHS Miami, and Miami YPN, and the unforgettable Miami Realtors Global Council. And here's where I ask anyone, how many of you are 40 or less years old? And how many of you feel 40 or less years old? I have my mornings. Yes to both. Excellent. That means that you can become a Miami YPNer. I'll give more information in a couple of slides ahead. Also, there are knowledgeable and engaged professionals via phone, live chat, email, waiting to assist you and provide you the best, not customer service, I like to say member service. Your membership includes access to 225 products and services or more that range from big data to international exposure, to creating an email, to now our ever lovely Eve from Agent 3000, which is an AI that helps you write remarks in a bio, and so much more. We do have 8 office locations, and we are sometimes available via Zoom like we are today. Our office locations in Miami-Dade are at Miami HQ, just north of the Miami International Airport, Coral Gables, I believe Maggie's there, Northwestern Dade Hialeah, right? That's where I'm at today with Tyson, who's quietly there watching and monitoring the chat too, and Aventura. These are our 4 Miami-Dade locations. We do have 3 offices in Broward. How many of you are from Miami-Dade? How many of you are in Broward? Anybody from Palm Beach? I see Broward, Miami, Broward, Dade. Woo. Nice. Aventura, Maria Angelica, I saw that. We have Palm Beach, yay! We'll talk about that a little bit too. Hope Sound, beautiful up there. Excellent. So we have 3 office locations in Broward: West Broward, Northeast Broward, and Southeast Broward. I see Boca in the house too. Chicago. Well, welcome to Miami. We also have our JTHS office, and our office locations span our area of coverage. If you're ever wondering, our MLS and Supra covers Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, Martin, and St. Lucie. I see California, Orlando. Excellent. Welcome. Just friendly reminder, to obtain credit for assisting today, your camera must be on at all times. Your camera must be on at all times. I'm going to take 1 second here. And we'll take care, John Mark, of making you co-host. There you go. Again, camera must be on at all times. If you've already sent your name and license number, great. If you have not, take this minute now and send your name and license, only if you have not. If you have questions, the chat is our mode of communication, and all of the material provided to you today is available at miamirealtors.com/orientation. Again, we thank you for joining us, and we will continue. Now, I asked you, how many of you felt 40 or less or are 40 or less? Well, all of you could be Miami YPN. What's that? They are the Young Professionals Network. If you're 40 or less, you can participate in their leadership opportunities. But if you feel 40 or less or are 40 or less, you can participate in their events and more. Now, how many of you have your cell phone right next to you? Anyone? Let me see. Let me look at you guys. Anybody has their cell phone? Show me your cell phone. How many of you use Instagram? Come on, Anai. Do you use Instagram? Tong, Aaron. If you're interested in following, you can go ahead and follow at Miami YPN in Instagram. Also note that on our website, miamirealtors.com, you can go ahead and register. The cost to join Miami YPN is free. Why join? What a great opportunity to learn from your peers, share information, and see what's happening in the industry. Miami YPN. Next up, orientation material. I've seen some of those questions come through. This is a QR code that will take you directly to the orientation. Notice that here we have videos for the first time login, right? With the steps to log in, a new member checklist that can help you do what? Start marking up all those things that you could or should be doing and taking advantage of. How many of you have already taken an MLS class, at least 101? How many of you have done the whole series? So this wonderful checklist will allow you to see what it is that you need to do to get started. Our orientation class material is on this page, miamirealtors.com/orientation. And we also provide you the trademark links as mentioned before, links to the code of ethics, links to info and classes that you can take, and the ever wonderful pathway to success. Friendly reminder that John Mark is letting you know, if your camera is not on, we cannot give you credit. So please make sure that your camera is on at all times. Wow, there's 207 of you. That's simply amazing. Next up, we're going to talk about the services. The services are available to you on our service page. You can simply visit your miamirealtors.com page and put /services or search for it in the search bar. We have information on photo, preferred photographers, working with sellers and buyers, creating a CMA, data, and so much more. When you join us, you also have access to an ever-evolving, always offering more education team, offering over 4,000 seminars annually. At our office locations via Zoom and more, here's a live chat, conference center, and how many of you follow at Miami YPN? Well, take a minute, find your phones, and on Instagram, or in social media, go ahead and follow at the Miami Realtors. At the Miami Realtors. Great. Thank you so much. Now, the power of Miami services. Sometimes you're looking to see what you could get for free or what's out there that could help improve the way you run your business. You can join us for a working with buyers and seller class, a customer engagement class, a free from Miami class because they're marked that way, where we talk to you about these wonderful services. I'll give you a hint to one. How many of you would love an interactive virtual business card? Well, you have access to Instacard. For details, you could simply visit miamirealtors.com and on that search bar, put Instacard or miamirealtors.com/Instacard. How to enroll for class. Here's one of the things I always like to ask. How many of you have visited our website? Is it for us or is it really for you? It's actually for you, our members. And how many of you have come in? How many of you have come in? And all you do is click on that gateway. Tell me. Just the gateway? Well, what about all these other parts right here? And all this information and the news bar? I'm guilty too, but I also teach most of what's on the gateway. So I got it. Calendar is a good one. Zachary goes to commercial. Yes, I love it. All right, but do we click on the other items? So sometime this week, go ahead and click on something else and take advantage of everything that's available at miamirealtors.com for you, our Miami members. And then, of course, guess what I'm going to talk about? Clicking on that gateway. When you click on that gateway, it brings you to our gateway dashboard. Here's the link for Florida Realtors. Here's the one I was mentioning about NAR, right? And then the links to all these wonderful single sign-in items, including the MLS and so much more. If you join us for a working buyers and seller class or any of our classes, we tend to talk about several of these. How many of you know that you can offer a concierge service for someone moving? Well, there's a little button right up here called Utility Connect. You got to find out about it. If you're interested in details, you could join us for that working with buyers and seller, but you could be curious enough to click and prepare yourself a site where you can offer your customers a concierge service. Whether they're renting, buying, selling, they're going to need to move their cable service, right? Their electricity and other things, right? So you could simply help them. Give me 1 second. That was fun. We had lights out there for a second. All righty. Next up, your MLS options. Your MLS options. Oh, I'm sorry. It was called Utility Connect, and it's right up here. I'm so glad that you've used different things. Your MLS options. All of you have access to Remind Pro. We'll talk about that a little later. And some of you will select Matrix X or Rapatoni according to what they have at your office or your preference. But we also want you to know that you have information such as Realtor.com's professional search. We have those ever-moving people from other states. Anyone from another state? I saw some Chicago in there. Right? Well, you have professionals and families moving from other states here to wonderful Florida, right? And you could use Realtor.com's professional search for some info. Maybe you're looking to help someone find property in Ocala, Pensacola, etc. You can use something like MLS Advantage to see the state of Florida information. And as you know, oh, Kentucky, New York, I'm distracted by that chat. I'm so happy that you're here with us. We hope you like South Florida. We have IMAP, which is a tax service that also has MLS detail, RPR, which is just the friendliest. And then we have 2 international MLSs with information. So this again is available at miamirealtors.com/orientation, but we wanted you to know that your options. Next up is Remind. Remind Pro is a comprehensive, intuitive, modern MLS that provides you the ability to do some prospecting and farming, do MLS search for our area, a nationwide tax detail search, CMA reports, and we offer a whole slew of classes, Remind Pro, prospecting and farming, etc., which gives you details on how to use this wonderful product that, by the way, is over, I want to say, $1,100 of savings or more a year to you. The association during the pandemic decided that their members deserved, right, you, access to Remind Pro, and flip the switch April 2020 to provide all of you this wonderful information. So be sure to take a Remind Pro class. Matrix X. Matrix X. How many of you have logged in and used Matrix? Let me see that chat. Yay! I love that you say that. And those that say not yet, that's the idea. If you haven't done so just yet, that you do. One of the things that I do want you to know is we offer you 6 classes dedicated to learning more about the MLS. That is 6. It's a series. It starts just like the classes you take in college, 101, 201, 301. And we invite you to come out and meet your Miami trainers, Tyson, Christy, and I, right? And take a class. Next, we have MLS Advantage. Again, as I said before, this is Florida MLS details. Along with that, we have Miami tax programs that are available to you. Miami tax programs. There are 4 of them, and it's amazing what you can do with each. IMAP is a classic, Remind, RPR, and Realist. We offer classes in all of these because you must, and I'm sure you've heard of the CMA. How many of you have heard of the CMA? Comparative market analysis. You need to create them, right? And you can use these tools to do so. But you can also use these tools to search, to do prospecting, to send mailers, and so much more. So make sure to register for a program, for a class, and take it. Not only do we offer classes on these, but we offer a wonderful CMA workshop class. CMA workshop class. How about your transactions? Where do you store them? Where do you keep them? Where do you get the Florida forms? Well, we offer you 2 solutions, Form Simplicity and Dot Loop, where you can share, exchange, send emails, right? Have them sign and more, and keep everything where your broker needs you to. Best thing to do here is go back to the broker office and say, what transaction management tool do you use? And if it's Form Simplicity and Dot Loop, we offer classes to assist. All of these have the latest and greatest up-to-date Florida forms and more. Form Simplicity and Dot Loop. 2 solutions for your transaction management tool. Then, classes. How many of you work during the day? So it can be a little difficult to join us in a class. Did you know that you have access to Miami Realtors Live? That icon right up here is available on your Miami Gateway dashboard. On your Miami Gateway dashboard. And what does this mean? This means that you can click in and take a course whenever you need to and when it's convenient to you. You also have available to you the Miami Trainers YouTube channel, youtube.com/Miami Trainers, covering products and services. Okay. Next, Inman. How many of you need to keep posted of what's happening in real estate? Everyone. Everyone, right? Did you know that you have access to Inman Select? Here it says $199 value. Well, it's actually $249. And all of you have access to it. What do you need to do to obtain it? News articles, updates, what's happening in the industry, what are the latest marketing trends, what are small boutique brokerages doing it, what are agents doing it to be successful, etc. All of this is available to you simply by going to miamirealtors.com/Inman. miamirealtors.com/Inman. You follow the 3 simple steps and you can access the information. Now, how many of you are on social media? Let us know. Let me see. Let me look at you a little bit. Anybody on social media? No? No social media? No one wake up, look for social media, look at your Facebook, look at your Instagram, no one? I see those yeses. Everyone says Zachary. So how many of you would like some help navigating into social media for your new business real estate? We started a new social media series, I want to say last week. Yes, and it was greatly successful. We're starting it in Spanish, I believe, and English, another session of them tomorrow, in Spanish later next week. And we really have created a great stellar way for you to get started and see what it is that you can do on social media to stay in contact with all of your past, future, right? And current customers. Take a class, join us, it's for free. We want to help you attract customers. We want to show you how to use Reels, how to make Instagram a potent way for you to reach new people. And of course, talk about the traditional social media accounts like LinkedIn, and then your business account. I'm sorry, not like LinkedIn, your traditional social media like Facebook, right? And then do you have Twitter? Do you not? LinkedIn and more. So join us for that great social media series. We also have a page dedicated with information for you, miamirealtors.com/social media. Agent 3000, Agent 3000. Christy, are you out there? Do you have a second to tell them why you think social media is great, or do you want to put it in the chat and I tell them? You've been teaching it lately, and I know you've gotten some wonderful info. Yes or no? If you see, I've updated the slide because, by the way, Agent 3000 has a whole part that's free for you Miami members. And I tell you, please sign up for a class. Agent 3000 Part 1. Tyson, what do you think? Do you like it? Let them know via chat or tell them. Why I let you know and why we talk about this is, how many of you have time to do marketing? How many of you need assistance and need something to be easy? How many of you realize that as realtors, you're the accountant, assistant, manager, everything for your business? Yes or no? And sometimes you need a little help. Agent 3000, everything you get for free and more. We offer it in Part 1, and then we have 2, 3, and 4 sections for the upgrades. But I need to tell you that it's an essential marketing tool. We have new OK to advertise searches, new Eve, which is artificial intelligence to help you write remarks and bios and more. And I see some of that chat going out where Tyson and Christy let you know, yes, take the class. How about easy to use social media tools that will help you prepare and engage customers, custom flyers, a QR code. Don't you want your own QR code? What if you have a listing? Don't you want to create a listing to follow where you're generating interest with a QR code for your listing? You have to take it. There's 4 parts to it, but everyone, Free from Miami, Part 1. So if you could, please register to take that one. By the way, recordings in English are available, right, Christy? Agent 3000, your all-in-one marketing solution. eProperty Watch. So here I stop a second. I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about your business. How many of you know that you should be keeping a list of everyone that you know, meet, encounter, including fellow realtors, right? Colleagues, that person that you buy coffee from at Starbucks? right? Because they all need what? A place to live. Now, how many of you are thinking of doing commercial or are in commercial? Well, that location, right? All those people that work at a place, they need that place to work at. So that's you too. This business is by people, for people, with people, where people live, and then where people go to work and do business. Yes or no? So you need that database. You need that spreadsheet, right? First name, last name, email address, phone number, right? First name, last name, email address, phone number, and physical address. Something we haven't used much in the last couple of years because we've depended so much on email. And I always ask you, how many of you think that sometimes email is a bit much, right? So how about providing your customers a valuation of the property where they're living in, whether they're a renter or a buyer, for the renter to push them to buy, and the homeowner or property owner so that they know the value of their property. How about a neighborhood activity report with what's happening in the area, market trends, and more? And what about if it did it automatically? All you had to do is add first name, last name, email, and then the property address, right? And you send them an invite, and what do? They say yes and confirm the invitation. And on a monthly basis, eProperty Watch sends to up to 2,500 of your closest and dearest customers this drip marketing campaign information. Every month, an update on home value, neighborhood activity, and market trends. How about that? Free for Miami members. So write it down. What was it? eProperty Watch. Why I tell this to you? We offer this in a working with buyers and sellers class, but if you open up Matrix, you're going to see this or something similar like this available on the homepage. So click in it and prepare yours. If you want us to help you along, join us for working with buyers and sellers. Next, international. And here I go. How many of you were born somewhere else or your parents were born somewhere else? Share in that chat. Where are you from? I see Cuba, Brazil, Russia, Taipei, Switzerland, Puerto Rico, Serbia, Ireland, Israel, Greece, Philippines. Wow, I can't keep up. Yay! So now I ask you, what are you doing here? What brought you to South Florida? Why do you like it here? I see Sarah's from New York. The weather. Well, not today's weather, right? It was rough out there today. Come back, Jennifer. We're waiting for you. I see it. So we offer you access and a profile to 2 international MLSs, Proxio, connecting realtors and real estate around the world, and the international MLS. Whether you're interested in reaching out to realtors like you across the world or making sure that you have a profile for someone looking and searching in other places here, you have access to these 2, the international MLS and Proxio. Next, your Miami trainers. Look, that's us, Christy, Tyson, and Connie. We have over 40 plus years of industry experience. We offer you classes in English and in Spanish regarding technology services for the over 225 products and services. Our courses regarding technology are all for free. We have them via Zoom and in person. Today, I'm giving it to you via Zoom. And this little QR code will take you to our page with info. We're here to assist and help. You can reach us at trainers@miamire.com. And we're very proud and happy to be able to provide you a service that we hope helps you with what you want to do, real estate. Remember that we offer you MLS classes, information, social media, and so much more. Your Miami trainers. Now a little message from one of our service providers, Car Tow Front. Here's a flood insurance quote that's integrated into the MLS, easy to use, and translates into English and Spanish. It's bilingual. Integrated into the MLS is that water drop known as Azul that provides you an estimated flood insurance cost. And now if you visit the page miamirealtors.com/cartofront, right? miamirealtors.com/cartofront, you could even obtain flood insurance quotes for properties that are not on the MLS. Free to you as our Miami members. The other thing they have that I love is that they have a wonderful booklet explaining flood insurance that you can share in English and in Spanish. Car Tow Front. Home visit. Well, home visit is an item that's integrated into the MLS that offers you distinct things that can help you enhance your listing. If you're interested, on Matrix in that homepage, you can get info on home visit. Supra. How many of you need Supra details? There's that little QR code there. Go ahead and take a picture of it and navigate to our Supra page. Do you need to coordinate the download or obtaining information on Supra? You can simply write to supra@miamire.com. And you can download the Supra eKey application and simply contact them for info. If you've got it, it's all good. Thanks so much. Remember that Supra is not only for you, but it is a great way for the listing agent and you to monitor your safety and the safety of the residents that's being shown. I know that Maggie has a wonderful explanation on how to be sure to use Supra appropriately, so I'll let her talk to you about that. But Supra is a key element to the success of realtors in South Florida, and we want to make sure that you have yours. You can either scan and go to that Supra info page or write to supra@miamire.com. The Platinum Plus subscription is an additional subscription that you can use, and if you're interested, you can simply visit miamirealtors.com/platinum plus. And now, here's a little key in. How many of you registered for this class, or did someone register you? Well, if you registered for this class, you know how to navigate our calendar, come in, find what it is that you're looking for, use the search or tags, etc. Once you've got it, you simply click to register, right? Once you register, it's going to ask you to log in if you haven't done so already. So you use your license and password that you've created. And just like a shopping cart, you come in, you click register, and how many of those classes are free? Almost all. You click over, oops, I got too enthusiastic there. But one of the things I do want to remember is you'll get a registration email confirming your registration. When you're coming in person, most of our locations now will send you the morning of the event a link to your Miami Fast Pass, which you will click and it will give you a QR code for you to show and sign in when you come in. Of course, today we're via Zoom, and that's why I had asked you all to send your name and license number. And if you did, we got it and we're set to go. But we wanted to make sure to show you how you could come in and register for class. From our commercial fans or commercial members, don't forget that you can become a commercial member if you're interested, or you can be resi-mercial, as we like to call them, right? If you're residential and interested in commercial. This is the QR code that will take you to miamirealtors.com/commercial, where you can get information on what it means to be a commercial member. And in many opportunities for less than $100, you can have a combination residential and commercial membership. So if you're interested, use this QR code and find out. Next, I'm going to click over. Are we ready, or did you need one more second with this slide? Commercial also has commercial marketplace and details. They do on a monthly basis for Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. You can connect. It tells you the info. And again, this is all at miamirealtors.com /commercial. Now I'm done with my portion of the presentation. We're going to give you, Maggie, how long should we give them for break?
Hi, and welcome to Code of Ethics. This is one of your requirements. So Connie handled the orientation part, which is a requirement from NER. And then, of course, you also have Code of Ethics, which I will be covering with you today. So we'll be together for the next 2 hours, give or take. If you have any questions, you can type them into the chat. However, there's a disclaimer that I often repeat through the Code of Ethics training, and that is to remind you that I am not an attorney. I am not a licensed real estate professional, and I am not a broker. So if the question veers off into any sort of legal territory, I'm going to waive that little disclaimer. And so you may be asking questions that we cannot answer, at which point we would recommend you ask your broker or that you call Florida Realtors legal hotline. All right. So to get started, the Professional Standards Department is made up of 3 people. So it's myself, Maggie Curiel. I'm at Coral Gables. I'm in Professional Standards, and I also am in Broker Relations. I work closely with Soshi Rieshi, who is our Professional Standards Manager, and she has been with us for a very long time, and she is very knowledgeable. And then, of course, we work closely with Chief Legal Counsel for the association, which is Evian White de Leon. At the bottom of the screen, you'll notice that I did say that you should add CasePro at miamire.com to your safe senders list. So CasePro is a system that we use to handle our ethics complaints and our requests for arbitration and our scheduling. It is an online platform, and we also communicate any changes or updates or any notices through this system, and it comes from an email address titled or named CasePro at miamire.com. So we ask that you add it to your safe senders list so that if at any point in time you are asked to participate in a professional standards proceeding, or if you filed a complaint or something has been filed against you, you are aware of all the communication that is being sent out and it doesn't accidentally end up in your junk folder. You can also contact the 3 of us at once if you simply email professionalstandards at miamire.com. And that can be if you have a question, if you have a potential ethics complaint, if you have a potential request for arbitration, you can go ahead and get the process started or find out what resources and next steps are available if you email Professional Standards. We have a resource page, and that's the last thing that I have listed on this slide, which is simply miamirealtors.com/professional-standards. This slide will be throughout the presentation. I have it in here a couple of times. So go ahead and take a picture or take a screenshot. And if you don't get a chance to, don't worry, it'll be up here later on as well. All right. So course objectives, because this is a requirement, there are certain objectives that have to be met. So we have 7 objectives today, and one of those is identifying key aspirational concepts in the preamble. So the Code of Ethics is made up of 17 articles, but before the first article, there is a preamble that often gets overlooked. And so we're going to discuss the concepts that are laid out in that preamble. We'll also describe general business ethics, and we'll go ahead and compare and contrast the Code of Ethics and the different articles that are in it. We'll talk about the different concepts that are established in each article, and we'll also identify possible violations. So a little later on in the presentation, we're going to have some case interpretations that NER has published, and we'll go ahead and go through them. And I'll ask you guys in the chat to let me know if you think that the hypothetical situation, do you think it's a violation or not? So that's how we're going to run through identifying possible violations. We're also going to talk about the professional standards process for enforcing the Code of Ethics and your duty to arbitrate. So what does it look like, or what are the steps? And I'm going to give you a very general explanation because it is a very detailed process. We'll talk about due process, which is how we make sure that everyone is afforded the same access and that we are offering everyone an impartial, unbiased hearing. We will also talk about how you can use the code of ethics in your daily business practices. So how you can kind of weave it into what you do every day. And we'll finish up with the pathways to professionalism, which includes respecting property, the public, and your peers. All right. So a little bit about the history. Before 1900, there was no actual real estate license. And so it was a free-for-all. But by 1908, the National Association of Realtors had been formed, which is NAR. So remember, Connie explained this, that through your Miami membership, you are not only a member of Miami Association of Realtors, which is your local association, but you are also paying for membership to Florida Realtors, which is the state association, and NAR, the National Association. So by 1913, they adopted a code of ethics. And by the way, they were established in 1908. Does anybody know when Miami Realtors was established? We celebrated an important, we were paying attention. Connie must have mentioned it. Yeah. Well, look at that, Connie. They were all paying attention to what you had to say. So yeah, we were established in 1920. We've had a few mergers since then, but we started in 1920. We celebrated our 100 years during the pandemic. But so we're not too much younger. We have been around almost as long as NAR. So they adopted the Code of Ethics in 1913, and they have started to review and analyze and refresh it annually since 1989. So usually every October, November, they have a big conference where they review the Code of Ethics and they decide whether or not it needs to be amended, edited, maybe things need to be deleted, added. And they also look at the Code of Ethics and Arbitration Manual, which outlines all of the processes and procedures for professional standards proceedings. So what does that mean? I will be going over changes that have occurred in the last few years. I will be specifically focusing on some major changes that happened in 2020 and some changes that were implemented in 2023. That doesn't mean that there weren't changes in 2021 or 2022, but they were administrative, right? They had more to do with how to run virtual hearings, which was not a thing before 2020. So it might not be as important as some of the other changes. But my recommendation is that every January you go to NAR's website and you pull up the Code of Ethics. They will highlight any changes that have been made. All right. So the Code of Ethics, first and foremost, it is your commitment as a realtor, as a realtor member, to professionalism. And it is recognized as the measure of high standards in real estate. So it's going to set that bar. And you are responsible for making sure that you hold up the principles of the Code of Ethics, that you are behaving ethically in and out of real estate. But also, we have the process of filing ethics complaints so that you can hold each other to that standard as well. So remember, there's less than 70 employees at Miami Association of Realtors, but there are more than 60,000 members. And so we do rely heavily on those ethics complaints and those requests for arbitration, and you guys holding each other to that standard. It's the golden thread that binds the realtor family together, meaning that regardless of what area of expertise you end up developing, meaning maybe you decide to be purely residential or just commercial, or like Connie said, resi-mercial, or maybe you focus on luxury, maybe you focus on rentals, whatever the case may be, you are all bound by the same Code of Ethics. It's not going to change or fluctuate based on what specialization you choose to go into. It's a living document, which means it's evolving. It's not stagnant. That's why they analyze it annually. And of course, it's never going to be opposed to the law. This is a quote from Pearl Davies where it is highlighted that NAR, or that any, the real estate organization that as a trade is the second trade group to actually develop a code of ethics along the lines of other professions like doctors and attorneys and nurses and engineers and teachers, etc. So some business best practices. Code of ethics. Be aware of the code of ethics. We are going to go through the 17 articles today. So in the chat, really quickly, go ahead and let me know, have you read the code of ethics from preamble to article 17? And it's okay if you haven't. We're going to go through the 17 articles today. I'm not going to go through all the standards of practice because there are quite a few, but we're going to go through the code of ethics. All right, well, we're going to do that today. So for those of you that already have, hopefully it'll help clarify and strengthen your understanding of it. And for those of you that haven't, we're going to go through it today and hopefully it's a start for you. I do recommend that you read all of them, including all of the standards of practice. So just like Connie gave you some homework, I'm going to give you some homework, some takeaway. Read the code of ethics. Okay, every last word of it. So Miami Realtors bylaws. Go ahead and let me know in the chat if you have read all of our bylaws. And the chat mythically got, oh, there we go. Some, no. Okay. All right. I appreciate the honesty. So then out of curiosity, how many of you have already logged into the gateway and started clicking around on your products and services, clicked around in Matrix? Right, a bunch of you. So if you recall, the first time you log in, it's going to ask you to select some security questions and obviously answer them. It's going to ask you to change your password because we gave you a temporary one, and then it's going to ask you to electronically sign. Do you remember what you electronically signed and what it stated? So if you've already logged in and you've already gone into Matrix and started clicking around and you did all of this, you electronically signed that you would comply with our bylaws. And in our bylaws, you are agreeing to comply with the code of ethics. So make sure you go to our website and pull up our bylaws and read them. I would also recommend that you pull up our MLS rules and regulations and read those as well. So just a quick little reading assignment. After today, go through the code of ethics, go through our bylaws, go through our MLS rules and regulations, and make sure that you have an idea of what's in those documents. It's very important. Industry standards. You're going to get updates on industry standards, maybe with some of our webinars. We have really great legal updates that are put out by our government affairs office and in conjunction with our chief legal counsel. So you may want to check those out. We have a great legal page, miamirealtors.com/legal. You might get industry updates on these standards from your broker, so in your office meetings. And that's where they will also go over things like company policies, which will vary from brokerage to brokerage. They're each going to want to run their business a certain way. And so they'll go over their own company policies. And then, of course, be aware of any federal, state, and local laws and any changes. Again, we have a great legal update page, and we have some wonderful legal updates that you'll get through webinars, and they do post those recordings as well. So you may find those interesting. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, you are all bound by the code of ethics. It is not going to fluctuate or change based off of a specialization. So regardless of what your specialty is, you're all going to be bound by the same 17 articles. So let's talk about the structure of the code of ethics. A lot of it is tied to the golden rule, which is something we all learned as children, right? You want to treat other people, or you should treat other people the way you would like to be treated. And as long as you kind of make that the center of your transactions and how you interact with others, you are going to be complying with the code of ethics. So it is organized into 3 sections, and this is just for organizational purposes. That doesn't mean that you are limited to only certain sections when you're filing an ethics complaint. So there's a section dedicated to duties to clients and customers, another one dedicated to your duties to the public, and then lastly, your duties to other realtors. So again, what this means is, let's say I needed to file a complaint against Connie because I worked a transaction with Connie and I feel she was the most unethical person I've ever worked with. That doesn't mean I'm limited to looking at just the last section, which is duties to other realtors. I can look at all 17 articles and choose from those 17 which I think she may have violated. So this is just for organization. Okay. And I know Connie's in the chat probably upset that I hypothetically called her unethical. So there are 17 articles, as I've mentioned. Each of those sections is composed or organized with these articles, which are broad statements according to NAR. But when you read them, you'll realize they're not broad. They're actually rather specific, and only articles can be violated. So if you've looked at the Code of Ethics, or if maybe you opened it now that I am about to start going into it, you'll notice that some of the articles have standards of practice listed beneath them. If someone is potentially violating the Code of Ethics, they're going to potentially violate an article, not a standard of practice. So what that means is, and I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit more, standards of practice are meant to help you interpret the article and kind of clarify the meaning. So I could say Connie violated Article 1 and take it a step further and say she violated Article 1 as supported by standard of practice 1.1 and 1.2. So my main focus is going to be that article, but I can use the standards of practice to support what it is I'm saying. There are also case interpretations, right? And the case interpretations come from NAR. So our recommendation is, if you see case interpretations posted anywhere, verify where they came from. If they are not from NAR, disregard them, because the only ones that have been approved are the ones that NAR has put forth, or set forth, I should say. It also helps to read all of the case interpretations because it gives you like a frame of reference for the articles. So sometimes reading the articles and the standards of practice, it's just not enough. But then you read a case interpretation and it helps clarify it even further. There are case interpretations for all of the articles. All right, so we're going to jump into the articles, and I will stop at the end of each slide just to see if there are any questions that I can answer. Remember, sometimes I cannot. So I just saw that someone in the chat said they can't see my screen. Can someone let me know if that is an issue for everyone?
Looks all good from this end. They may have to change the way they're viewing the Zoom. You either have to expand or select. There's a little view item on the very top. We can all see.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So let's start with the first section, duties to clients and customers. And that's going to be a big chunk of the Code of Ethics because it's the first 9 articles. And then for duties to the public, we have articles 10 through 14, duties to realtors, articles 15 through 17. All right. So, I went ahead and clicked too far. So Article 1, and I will say every year in January, we host a little webinar. We started doing this. And what we do is we go over the statistics and we talk about the most cited articles. So for 2021, it was articles 1, 3, and 12. For 2022, it was articles 1, 2, and 3. So Article 1 is definitely the most cited article, and it is usually the most violated as well. So Article 1 states, when representing a buyer, seller, landlord, tenant, or other client as an agent, realtors pledge themselves to protect and promote the interests of their client, which seems like common sense, right? But if it's in an article, that means that it's not so common. So your first responsibility is going to be to your customer. The article does go on to say that this obligation to the client is primary, but it does not relieve realtors of their obligation to treat all parties honestly. So even though your biggest responsibility or your first responsibility is to your customer, that's not going to excuse you from treating everyone honestly. When serving a buyer, seller, landlord, tenant, or other party in a non-agency capacity, realtors remain obligated to treat all parties honestly. So even if that isn't technically your customer, you are still expected to treat them honestly. If it's another realtor, if it's another person involved in the transaction. What is the one word that you heard repeated through Article 1? You can jump in the chat and say it. Honesty. You got it. So that being said, now it's easy to understand why Article 1 is our most cited and most violated article, because if someone is behaving unethically, then they are most definitely, usually, I should say usually, also being dishonest somewhere along the way. So Article 1 is kind of our umbrella where a lot of these ethics complaints will fall under. Article 2, realtors shall avoid exaggeration, misrepresentation, or concealment of pertinent facts relating to the property or the transaction. So this boils down to disclosing what you know. So if you know something, you need to make sure that you are disclosing it. And you're also being asked to avoid exaggeration and misrepresentation. They want you to make sure that you are communicating honestly. Realtors shall not, however, be obligated to discover latent defects in the property. So although you are expected to share any important information you may have, you are not expected or obligated to go in search of, right? So you don't have to go on a hunt to find what may be wrong with the property. You are also being asked not to advise on matters that are outside the scope of your real estate license. Meaning, maybe you're walking through the property with your customer and they're like, oh, I would love to redo the kitchen. How much do you think that would cost me? You are not a general contractor. You are not a cabinet maker. You should not be talking about that. Oh, the plumbing, what if I needed to redo the plumbing or the electrical? If that falls outside of your scope, you should not be advising your customer on those matters. You should be redirecting them to someone who is knowledgeable in those areas. And then lastly, it says that you shall not disclose facts which are confidential under the scope of agency or non-agency relationships as defined by state law. So if something is confidential, you are not to disclose it. Article 3 says realtors shall cooperate with other brokers except when cooperation is not in the client's best interest. I always say that this one is about playing nice in the sandbox. You have to cooperate with each other. The obligation to cooperate does not include the obligation to share commissions, fees, or to otherwise compensate another broker. So this requirement to cooperate doesn't mean that you're obligated to share commissions or fees. But you do have to cooperate with each other. You do have to communicate with one another. Lack of communication actually becomes a potential twofold violation. It's an MLS issue because there are rules against uncooperative agents. And then it's also potentially a violation of Article 3. Sometimes there are things that kind of fall into both realms, MLS and professional standards. So make sure that you are cooperating with each other. Article 3 is one of those articles that I will say, please pay close attention to the standards of practice, okay? Because it's going to help you understand cooperation a little bit more and also read those case interpretations. Very important. All right, Article 4. Article 4 says realtors shall not acquire an interest in or buy or present offers from themselves, any member of their immediate families, their firms, or any member thereof, or any entities in which they have any ownership interest, any real property, without making their true position known to the owner or the owner's agent or broker. So Article 4 is twofold. Article 4 first states that if you have an interest in buying or presenting an offer, either on your own behalf or on behalf of a company in which you have any sort of stake in, or a family member, or anything that means you have some other underlying personal interest, you need to make sure that you are disclosing that. So it says you have to make your true position known to the owner or the owner's agent or broker. How you go about disclosing that information is going to rely upon your broker and company policies. They might have a form that they've created. They might have a form from Florida Realtors that they want you to use, but they are going to guide you as to how that information should be disclosed. Keep in mind that NAR does not clarify who is technically a member of the immediate family, and those definitions can vary slightly depending on where you look. So please make sure that you are always disclosing any personal interest of any kind when you are presenting an offer. The second part of Article 4 says that in selling property they own or in which they have any interest, realtors shall reveal their ownership or interest in writing to the purchaser or the purchaser's representative. So the second half of this is looking at the transaction from the other side. If you are selling a property or selling a property in which you have any personal interest, you need to make sure that you reveal that in writing to the buyer or the buyer's representative. Again, talk to your broker or Florida Realtors legal hotline about what forms you should use or how you should go about making that disclosure. I will say that our MLS does have a field in each listing that says owner agent, where the listing agent can select yes or no. But as far as how to truly disclose that in writing, I would refer you back to your broker or to your or to Florida Realtors legal hotline. So does anyone have any questions right now on Articles 1 through 4 before I move on to the next slide? All right. And again, if you think of anything later on, you can always email professional standards at Miami RE. So let's talk about Article 5. Article 5 states, realtors shall not undertake to provide professional services concerning a property or its value where they have a present or contemplated interest unless such interest is specifically disclosed to all affected parties. So I feel like Article 4 and 5 go hand in hand. Whatever may not be covered by Article 4, whatever may fall through the cracks, would probably be caught by Article 5, because Article 5 is letting you know that you are not going to provide any professional services for a property or do anything related to its value if there's any sort of contemplated interest, if you have any personal interest. Article 6, realtors shall not accept any commission, rebate, or profit on expenditures made for their client without the client's knowledge and consent. Article 6 is about no hidden fees. So you're not going to collect any extra sort of money on whatever it is you're doing for your customer without your customer's consent. They need to be aware of every line item and every penny and where it's going. Article 7, in a transaction, realtor shall not accept compensation from more than one party, even if permitted by law, without disclosure to all parties and the informed consent of the realtor's client or clients. So if you are representing both sides of the transaction, everyone needs to know that that is happening. So maybe you listed the property, but you also found the buyer. You need to make sure that everyone knows that you are representing both the seller and the buyer in that situation. And that's just one example. But you need to make sure you're disclosing that. Any questions on Articles 5, 6, and 7? And I see someone asked about Article 4. Article 4 is if I want to invest into properties, this is where this would apply, right? I don't know what you mean by apply, but Article 4 is where it lets you know that if you are going to be buying or selling, you need to make sure that they know you have a personal interest behind that listing or behind that offer. And there's another article that covers, everyone needs to know that you're a realtor. Can you accept a lunch with your customer? Like a lunch meeting, or are you concerned about they cover the cost of it? I would talk to your broker about best practices for that. Customer lunches are not generally something that comes up with. I would talk to your broker about how to go about that. But everyone takes lunch meetings, right? All right, so Articles 8 and 9, and this will wrap up the section for duties to your clients and customers. Article 8 states realtors shall keep in a special account in an appropriate financial institution separated from their own funds, monies coming into their possession in trust for other persons, such as escrows, trust funds, clients' monies, and other like items. So this is very simply stating that your personal money and your professional, that needs to be separate. Either way, money is usually at a brokerage going through the broker, but you need to make sure that personal and professional are separate, and that there is no commingling of funds. All right, and I saw someone ask about dual agency, and Connie was very quick to remind you that you can talk to Florida Realtors Legal Hotline. Thank you, Connie. Article 9, realtors for the protection of all parties shall assure whenever possible that all agreements related to real estate transactions, including but not limited to listing and representation agreements, purchase contracts, and leases, are in writing in clear and understandable language, expressing the specific terms, conditions, obligations, and commitments of the parties. So you need to make sure that the agreements are written in a way that your customer can understand the terms, the conditions, the obligations, the commitments. You are not an attorney, and there's an article that talks about you not practicing law. Sometimes I do have attorneys in the room, but for the most part, you are not an attorney. You are not responsible for legally interpreting the documents. You would direct them to an attorney for that. But you are filling out these documents, and you need to make sure that you are writing and presenting it in a way that is clear and understandable, that you aren't misleading or, trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. The article finishes up by saying that a copy of each agreement shall be furnished to each party to such agreements upon their signing or initialing. So once everyone is done signing and initialing where they should, then you would go ahead and make sure that everyone has a copy of that final document that has everyone's signatures. Okay, any questions on Articles 8 or 9? Okay, and I see someone said, if I'm also a general contractor, can I talk to my client about the conditions of the house or not? If you are also a general contractor, then you are licensed to do so, but I would refer to whatever code of ethics or rules and regulations you have as a general contractor regarding the fact that now you are wearing two different hats, because we want to make sure you're not creating a conflict of interest for yourself at any point. So I would definitely talk to Florida Realtors Legal Hotline about that as well, and or any governing body that you may have as a general contractor. Like realtors have FREC, and you have, DBPR as a licensing agency for a bunch of different licenses. But I would go ahead and talk to Florida Realtors Legal Hotline about how to navigate that safely. All right, duties to the public. So now we're going to talk about duties to your customers. Article 10 is about discrimination, and we will be talking about Article 10 a little more in depth in a few slides, because there was a standard of practice, a brand new one added to Article 10 back in 2020. But the change that they made for 2023 is that they are changing, or they changed the word handicap when they list the protected classes to the word disability. They felt that handicap was an outdated term and it was time to update the term. So Article 10 is broken down into 3 concepts. First, it says realtors shall not deny equal professional services to any person for reasons of race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. And from now on, I'm just going to refer to those as the protected classes. Okay, and what this means is you're not going to deny someone your services simply because they are a part of or a member of any of these protected classes. So the second part is that realtors shall not be parties to any plan or agreement to discriminate. So you are not going to plan to discriminate, or I was going to use a word and it just escaped me. You're not going to plan to discriminate. You're not going to be an accomplice. That's the word that escaped. So you're not going to be an accomplice to a plan to discriminate against a person or any persons that are of the protected classes. And then the third point that it makes is that realtors in their real estate employment practices shall not discriminate against any person or persons of the protected classes. So the 3 points it's making is you're not going to deny anyone service. You're not going to plan to discriminate or be a part of a plan to discriminate. And when you are hiring in your employment practices, you are not going to discriminate. So, maybe when you want to grow your business and you need an assistant or you start building a team, right? But those are the 3 main points that are being made in Article 10. And as I said, we're going to talk about a standard of practice that they added back in 2020. All right, Article 11. The services which realtors provide to their clients and customers shall conform to the standards of practice and competence which are reasonably expected in the specific real estate disciplines in which they engage. Specifically, residential real estate brokerage, real property management, commercial and industrial real estate brokerage, land brokerage, real estate appraisal, real estate counseling, real estate syndication, real estate auction, and international real estate. All of those terms fall under an umbrella that they approved for this year, which is a real estate professional. So you are going to stick to what you know, right? It says you're going to conform to the standards of practice and competence, which are reasonably expected. So you are going to stick to what you know. So what happens if you have a customer that wants you to help them with a transaction, selling or buying something, and you are not reasonably competent or have been prepared or educated or worked in that? The second half of Article 11 tackles that. So it says, realtors shall not undertake to provide specialized professional services concerning a type of property or service that is outside their field of competence, unless they engage the assistance of one who is competent on such types of property or service, or unless the facts are fully disclosed to the client. So if someone comes to me and wants to embark on a real estate transaction, listing or selling or what have you, and it is in an area that I am ill-prepared for, I need to make sure that my customer knows that. And I need to seek out someone who is knowledgeable, right? So let's say I don't know anything about commercial, which, by the way, at Miami, we have a commercial certificate. There is a national commercial certification, and we host those classes as well. It's the CCIM. But let's say you have none of that. You are then going to seek out maybe someone in your office who does have that experience in commercial and bring them on. The article wraps up by saying that any persons engaged to provide such assistance shall be so identified to the client, and their contribution to the assignment should be set forth. So you're going to tell your customer, listen, I don't know much about commercial, but someone I work with does. Their name is, Connie, and Connie's going to be helping us navigate like the documents and navigate the legalities of this a little bit, not the legalities, but the documents and how to negotiate. And they'll be working with us for the entirety of the transaction, right? So you're going to stay in your lane. If it's something that is outside of what you have been reasonably prepared to do, then you are going to tell your customer that, and you're going to find someone who is prepared, and you're going to let your customer know this person is going to help us. Any questions on Articles 10 or 11? All right. So continuing with duties to the public with Articles 12, 13, and 14. Article 12 states that realtors shall be honest and truthful in their real estate communications and shall present a true picture in their advertising, marketing, and other representations. So what does that mean? That advertising, marketing, and other representations includes, but is not limited to, the MLS, email blasts, text message campaigns, social media posts, anything related to any marketing or advertisement of the property needs to be truthful, and it needs to be accurate, it needs to be honest. So what that means is when you write your remarks, make sure that they're being honest, make sure that you're including as much information as possible. When you send an email blast or a text message, or any marketing, a flyer, it needs to be accurate. I understand that you're in the business of selling real estate, right? And so sometimes you have to take a little bit of creative license. You have to get creative with how you phrase things and how you market them, but don't get too creative, right? The joke I always say, and the example I always use is, you'll see on the MLS that it says like, in need of a little TLC, handyman special. And there's like one picture of the door. You go look at the property and it's much worse than that, right? Or has a beautiful orchard, and then you go and the backyard has like one tree that has fallen over. So, be mindful of how you're saying things and how you are representing things. This also extends to social media posts and to status changes. So the MLS gives you 2 business days to update a status. And you need to make sure that if you posted something on social media, I got excited and I said, just listed, and I have an offer, well, that's no longer active. I need to make sure that my social media reflects that. Be mindful of your customers and what they're saying as well. Encourage them to share what you've posted so that whenever you delete that post or update that post, it also will roll over to whatever they've reposted. Okay. So the question that came up in the chat regarding commercial, remember, Article 11 says that you will stick to what you are reasonably competent to practice. So if you are not reasonably competent or prepared to practice in another field of real estate, you need to do your due diligence and bring in someone into that transaction who is, but you need to seek additional education. That's why there are so many certifications and designations out there, so that you can become reasonably competent in these additional areas. So your real estate licensure covers all of real estate, but the code of ethics is asking you to stick to what you are, the scope should be what you are reasonably competent in. Does that make sense? Perfect. And we have a commercial certificate, and there's a national certification called the CCIM. It's a big deal. So if you're interested in commercial, definitely check those out. Maybe start with our commercial certificate here in Miami and then branch out from there. All right. So back to Article 12. The rest of Article 12 states that realtors shall ensure that their status as real estate professionals is readily apparent in their advertising, marketing, and other representations, and that the recipients of all real estate communications are or have been notified that those communications are from a real estate professional. So in the state of Florida specifically, you also have to make sure you include your brokerage. So you need to make sure that your social media for business, your email blasts, if you reach out to someone, be mindful with text messages in the TCPA Act. But anytime that you are marketing yourself or your listings, or what have you, make sure that it is readily apparent that you are a realtor or realtor associate and the brokerage that you're with. Article 13. This is the one that I mentioned previously, unless you are an attorney, and even then you then need to be careful when you wear multiple hats. Realtors shall not engage in activities that constitute the unauthorized practice of law, and shall recommend that legal counsel be obtained when the interest of any party to the transaction requires it. Listen, with time, you will learn quite a bit, but at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you are not offering suggestions or advice that may be perceived as legal advice. You are not an attorney. And And again, even if you are licensed in other things, maybe you are an attorney, you need to be mindful of how you walk through these transactions so that you're not creating any issues for yourself or your customers. Article 14, if charged with unethical practice or asked to present evidence or to cooperate in any other way in any professional standards proceeding or investigation, realtor shall place all pertinent facts before the proper tribunals of the member board or affiliated institute, society, or council in which membership is held, and shall take no action to disrupt or obstruct such processes. Simply stated, if you get an email from professional standards asking you to respond to an ethics complaint, to cooperate as a witness, to provide documentation, you are obligated to do so, or you may be found in potential violation of Article 14 of the Code of Ethics. This also extends to confidentiality. So Article 14 is also the umbrella under which confidentiality for professional standards falls. Meaning what occurs in professional standards proceedings is confidential and is not to be discussed outside of that proceeding. If it is, then that person is in violation of the, potentially in violation of this article as well. I bring this up because I have often been told, and this I've been told from both the perspective of an MLS concern or an ethics and arbitration concern. I didn't want to say anything, or I didn't say anything, or I didn't file because nothing ever happens. And I want to clarify, this doesn't mean nothing happens. What occurs is, because these are confidential and they cannot be discussed outside of those situations, outside of those proceedings, no one knows what happens. So people assume nothing is happening. Please, we encourage you, if you have a potential ethics complaint or request for arbitration, please make sure that you reach out. If you have MLS concerns regarding, MLS data, rules and regulations, please contact the MLS department. But do not assume that because people aren't out there chattering about it, that nothing is happening. They're not talking about it because they can't talk about it. They would just get into more trouble. Okay. All right, any questions on articles 12 through 14 before I move on to the last three articles, which cover duties to your peers? All right. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about articles. All right, you guys are doing well. Last of the articles 15, 16, and 17. Article 15, realtors shall not knowingly or recklessly make false or misleading statements about other real estate professionals, their businesses, or business practices. So earlier I mentioned that a very elementary principle we all were taught as children is to treat other people the way we'd like to be treated. This is also tied to something we learned as kids. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. Okay? If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. If you are so concerned or upset by something that has occurred with another realtor, with another real estate professional, rather than going about and discussing it with multiple people, reach out to us in professional standards so that we can move forward with the procedures that have been created and set forth by NAR. Please do not say anything out there. So if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. And let's amend it. Come talk to professional standards. Article 16, realtors shall not engage in any practice or take any action inconsistent with exclusive representation or exclusive brokerage relationship agreements that other realtors have with clients. So the key phrase there is exclusive representation, exclusive relationship agreements. If someone has an agreement with another agent, you are not to meddle with that in any way. This is one of the most misinterpreted and misapplied articles, to the point that Florida realtors accidentally went too far. Florida realtors has gone ahead and started a campaign called Think It Through. And what they did was they have started to create videos to help people understand, to help members understand articles that are often misunderstood. or misinterpreted. This is the first article they started with, Article 16. So they have videos, and then they have like Dear Abby letters, which are like advice columns. And I have a video for Article 16. They're going to be expanding the library because this was such a hit. But for now, we have just Article 16. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you a video for Article 16. Let me make sure that I also am sharing the audio. Share computer sound. All right. Is it? Let me new share. Here we go. Give me 1 second. It's in a load. All right, so let's try one more time. And if it doesn't work, we'll just keep it moving. And I would recommend you go.
Hello, and welcome to Think It. This Florida Realtors educational series explores the Realtor Code of Ethics.
In each episode, you'll observe real-life situations where the code may provide guidance on what to do. You'll watch a scene, we'll break down elements of the code that apply to the situation. Then we'll challenge you to think it through to arrive at the proper course of action. The Code of Ethics. It's more than a point of pride. It's what sets realtors apart. It's the way you do business the right way. This episode is based on case 1622, ascertaining whether a consumer is subject to an exclusive representation agreement. Hello, and welcome to Think It Through. Today we're observing a listing agent just after showing her listing to a buyer.
So, what do you think?
It's really nice, but honestly, we were looking for more of a fixer-upper.
I see.
So proud of my husband. He did most of the remodeling on our last 2 properties.
Wow, impressive. You know, I might have the perfect property for you. I just took the listing this morning, and it is definitely what I would consider a fixer-upper. It's not far from here. Let me show you.
We should probably tell our realtor about the other property.
Hold it. Let's think it through. Article 16 of the Code of Ethics says, realtors shall not engage in any practice or take any action inconsistent with exclusive representation or exclusive brokerage relationship agreements that other realtors have with clients.
We should probably tell our realtor about the other property.
It is unethical for me to work with buyers who are working with other realtors. I can't talk to you at all anymore.
Does the code say what the listing agent thinks it says? Standard of Practice 16.9 says, realtors prior to entering into a representation agreement have an affirmative obligation to make reasonable efforts to determine whether the prospect is subject to a current, valid, exclusive agreement to provide the same type of real estate service. The listing agent said it was unethical to work with buyers who are working with other realtors. Period. The end. Mic drop, walking away. But think it through and notice that's not exactly what the code says. It says prior to entering into a representation agreement, realtors need to make reasonable efforts to find out if the buyers have an exclusive agreement with their realtor. Keyword, exclusive. Clearly, the code does not say what the listing agent thinks it says. Fact is, the code does not define reasonable efforts.
So, next time a buyer says something like,
We should probably tell our realtor about the other property.
What will you do? We strongly encourage you to think it through.
All right. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. So yeah, although it seems comical, that she would say something along the lines of, oh, you're working with another realtor, I can't work with you, it's unethical, and just walk away. It was happening. That's why it was the first These videos are linked on FR, and they are also, or should be also, on our Miami Realtors Live page. Okay. So if for whatever reason it didn't come through very well, maybe because of the connection, you can definitely seek it out on Miami Realtors Live. Regarding buyers signing, any signing of any kind, you would need to speak to your broker. You would need to speak to Florida Realtors legal hotline. Okay. So specifically, the video talked about making reasonable attempts to figure out if they have an exclusive agreement. And if you read Article 16, again, it's one of those that I would highly encourage you to read the standards of practice. There are 20 standards of practice, I believe, of all the articles. This is the one with the most standards of practice. I would highly recommend you familiarize yourself with those standards of practice and with the case interpretations. And if all else fails, again, call Florida Realtors legal hotline. Perfect. Thank you, Connie. All right, Article 17, which is our final article before we move on with the rest of today's presentation. In the event of contractual disputes or specific non-contractual disputes as defined in Standard of Practice 17.4 between realtors principals, which are brokers, associated with different firms arising out of their relationship as realtors, the realtors shall mediate the dispute if the board requires its members to mediate. So when a contractual dispute involving money, a real estate transaction between two different brokerages exists, they can mediate if it is required. So at Miami, we have mandatory mediation before arbitration. If the dispute is not resolved through mediation, or if mediation is not required, realtor shall submit the dispute to arbitration in accordance with the policies of their board rather than litigate the matter. And what they mean by litigate the matter is rather than go to court. In the event clients of realtors wish to mediate or arbitrate contractual disputes arising out of real estate transactions, realtors shall mediate or arbitrate those disputes in accordance with the policies of the board, provided the clients agree to be bound. So if a customer wants to mediate or arbitrate for whatever reason, then the realtor can go ahead and mediate or arbitrate on their behalf, but the customers have to agree to whatever was decided in that mediation or arbitration. The obligation to participate in mediation or arbitration contemplated by this article includes the obligation of realtor principals, which again are brokers, to cause their firms to mediate or arbitrate and be bound by any resulting agreement or award. So not only is a broker agreeing to arbitrate, but they are also including their firms, their brokerages in that obligation. To be clear, arbitration is broker to broker. If you ever have a contractual dispute that arises from a real estate transaction involving money, you are going to go tell your broker, and your broker is going to be the one that files against the other agent's broker. You will be involved as a person with a vested financial interest, but the ones who must file are the brokers. Why? Who do the listings belong to? The broker. Who handles all the money? The broker. So arbitrations are between brokers, and the agents who were involved participate in the proceedings. Any questions on the articles that we have reviewed? All right. So let's go ahead, and now that we finished reading those articles, it is 11:35. All right, let's go ahead and take a 5-minute stretch break before we move on to some of those changes that I mentioned earlier. All right, so come back from break. We are officially ready to continue moving forward with today's presentation. So changes to the Code of Ethics. Again, I'm focusing on changes that were made in 2020. and the ones that were made for 2023. That doesn't mean there weren't changes in the in-between. They were just minor by comparison. So 3 changes that I want to focus on that happened in 2020. They introduced a new standard of practice 10.5. They made changes to policy statement 29, which policy statements tend to clarify how articles or procedures can be applied. So statement 29 affected how the code of ethics is applied to a realtor's activities. And then they revised and updated the definition of public trust. So on November 13, 2020, they voted to approve these changes.
Maggie, may I interrupt 1 second?
Sure. Am I still not sharing the right thing?
No, you're fine. Please, there's no need to say that you're here. We have your information from the very beginning because some of you will ask questions and then the rest cannot see because we're writing in. We're super happy you're here. We can monitor you by camera and by your time in and out. So go ahead and you can just continue writing that in and take advantage of the chat questions and responses. Thank you. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. And my screen is okay and my audio is okay, right?
Beautiful like you.
You're so funny. I've been having all kinds of technical difficulties today, so I'm just making sure. All right. Thank you, Christy. So what they did was, you see, my mouse wants to do whatever it wants. What they did was they made changes that focus on a realtor's language. And they created a standard of practice for Article 10 that focuses on discrimination through language. So what you need to know, there was a new standard of practice, and that standard of practice 10.5 specifically states, and I'm looking at my code of ethics. I have a copy with me at all times, but it specifically states realtors must not use harassing speech, hate speech, epithets or slurs based on race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. So it's still focusing on discrimination against the protected classes, but specifically on the use of hate speech and harassing speech and slurs against people of the protected classes. The second change that I mentioned was policy statement 29. What they did with policy statement 29 is they expanded the applicability of the code of ethics to all of a realtor's activities. A lot of the articles are tied to what occurs in and around a real estate transaction, but they have expanded the applicability, which means they can apply potential violations. They can apply it to everything that a realtor says and does. And then they updated the definition of public trust. So public trust previously was defined as the misappropriation of client or customer funds or property, willful discrimination or fraud resulting in substantial economic harm. What they did was they expanded that definition so that now any discrimination against the protected classes, any fraud, regardless of whether there was substantial economic harm or not. So any discrimination, any fraud, any misappropriation of funds at all is considered a violation of public trust. Specifically, anything against the protected classes, which would result in a violation of Article 10, or anything that is fraud or falls under that umbrella of fraud or violation of public trust. If someone is found in violation, we must report that to FREC, which is the Florida Real Estate Commission. All right. So again, Article 10, standard of practice, which we just discussed, and we discussed Article 10 earlier. Policy statement 29, you can read it in its entirety. Everything is readily available on NAR's website, nar.realtor. You can go ahead and pull it up, but this is what expands the applicability of the Code of Ethics. So this is also going to talk about, and there's also an appendix that talks about the interpretation of standard of practice 10.5. Okay, we talked about how you are expected or encouraged to follow the code of ethics in everything you do, but now because of policy statement 29, you could be subject to disciplinary action under the Code of Ethics in regards to everything that you do. Public trust, as I said, was expanded to include all discrimination, all fraud, because regardless of whether there was substantial economic harm or not, NAR deems it, quote unquote, particularly egregious. And so those violations are now falling under public trust. It's a little bit broader. Again, if someone is found in violation, Miami Association of Realtors has to then report that to FREC. Now, when this was originally rolled out, there were concerns that were voiced by members regarding First Amendment rights. And so this came directly from NAR. This was one of the frequently asked questions, and this is the response from NAR as well. So the question posed states, this proposed new standard of practice seems to limit my right to free speech as established by the First Amendment of the Constitution. How can NAR legally adopt a policy like this? NAR's response stated, the First Amendment provides that neither the United States Congress nor any state may abridge the freedom of speech of American citizens. With some exceptions, the First Amendment does not prohibit a private organization from restricting the speech of its members, employees, or users. NAR is a private association that is supported by dues from members, is not exercising any governmental function, and has no subpoena power or other powers generally available to state agencies. As such, the First Amendment does not preclude NAR from imposing this ethical duty as a condition of membership. Okay, so simply put, NAR is not a government agency. It is a membership-based organization, and so they can set forth whatever rules they deem appropriate. All right, this went into effect November 13, 2020, and is not applicable retroactively. It is only applicable to what has occurred on or after November 13, 2020. Here are some resources that they also released at that time, and there is a bit.ly. This presentation is available on miamirealtors.com/orientation, so you can take full advantage of the links that are included as well. And so now we're going to talk about changes that came in for 2023. So these went into effect in January. They limited expedited enforcement. So expedited enforcement, someone files an ethics complaint and the person they filed it against has the opportunity to elect for an expedited ethics hearing where they basically beforehand just admit that they're at fault, that they did in fact do something that violated the Code of Ethics, that they have not done so in the last, or have not been found in violation in the last 3 years. And then instead of taking part in an entire hearing, just a panel gets together, looks at it, and decides what that person's consequences should be. When that person chooses this option, the consequences or the list of options that the panel has for consequences at that point is shortened. They don't have all of the options available to them. What they did with this quote unquote limit on expedited enforcement is they said the grievance committee, which is the first group of people that looks at a complaint to determine if something occurred potentially or not, they can say, based on what we're being told, based on what we see in the complaint, this situation is not available for expedited enforcement. This person needs to sit through an entire hearing, and the panel needs to have all of the options available to them for consequences. So what's new, grievance committee can require a hearing, so they can require them to sit through the hearing if they find it to be sufficiently egregious or potentially a violation of the public trust. Why do they do this? Because, again, under the expedited ethics enforcement process, a member cannot be suspended for more than 30 days. They also take expulsion off the table. It doesn't allow for suspension or expulsion from the MLS. And hearing panels cannot require respondents to cease or refrain from conduct deemed to be a violation of the code. These things are only available as options to the panel if there is a full hearing. Another thing that they went ahead and clarified, anonymous complaints are not allowed. they hadn't explicitly stated this, so this is their version of like making sure it is clear. What they, always made clear was that a hearing cannot take place without the complainant. And so in order for us to have the complainant there, anonymity is not an option. Definition of real estate professional, we talked about this with Article 11. That list of real estate disciplines that I mentioned fall under the umbrella of real estate professional. So these are the three major changes that came to professional standards. Now in the Code of Ethics, I mentioned that they went ahead and they updated the verbiage of Article 10. So now it is disability. And the other thing they did was they went ahead and updated Article 3's standard of practice 3.9 to include by the seller or owner, whereas before it was just by the owner, I believe. So they just went ahead and added some clarifying language. This does not mean I am done. This is just a reminder after having discussed some important things that if you need to contact us, you can do so by emailing professionalstandards@miamire.com. We have so far discussed the preamble and some of those concepts in the preamble. We've talked about the 17 articles, the changes that they've made to professional standards and the Code of Ethics in the last couple of years. So now we're going to move on to talking about some of those processes and procedures. What happens when you file an ethics complaint or an ethics complaint is filed against you? What happens with, arbitrations? So let's go ahead and start with, first and foremost, the first ones you will speak to are association staff. So generally you would speak to or start your communication with Soshi and or myself. We do not make any decisions. We just explain the process. We make sure that you have access to all the resources, that you fill out all the forms. We make sure that if you have any questions, procedural questions, we answer those. We receive the filing fees. There are no filing fees for ethics complaints. Filing fees only exist for requests for arbitration. Okay, but if there are any fees, we make sure to collect those. But we don't make any determinations. So when you call us and you say, listen, this is what happened to me, and you tell us the whole story, we will gladly hear you out. However, we cannot tell you whether you should or shouldn't file. We cannot tell you if there was or wasn't a violation, or if you have the grounds on which to file, a request for arbitration. We are Switzerland. The association is neutral and will maintain that neutral stance. So when you ask us if you should or shouldn't do something, should or shouldn't file, we are not going to answer that. We are going to direct you to the manual, which, by the way, aside from the Code of Ethics, NAR has a Code of Ethics and Arbitration manual that outlines all of these procedures, what someone can and can't do, timelines, etc. It's like a 250-page manual. Feel free to peruse that at your leisure, but everything is outlined there. We'll redirect you to the manual so that you can, see what the manual has to say. But we are not, we're not going to be biased. We're going to be neutral the entire time. So it starts with communication with us, the professional standards administrators for the association. Then what happens? So let's say you come to us with an ethics complaint, a potential ethics complaint. You're having issues with another member. Ethics complaints can be filed by members of the public as well. So these complaints can come from customers, buyers, sellers. They can come from other agents. Anyone can file an ethics complaint. The first step is we will offer you ombudsman. What's an ombudsman? This person is neutral. They are uninvolved. They do not know you. They do not know the other person. They do not work at the same brokerage or firm as either one of you. They will go ahead and all they are told is, hey, this person emailed us or called us because they're having this issue. They'll go ahead and call you, and they'll go ahead and call the other person, and they will try to resolve the dispute so that it doesn't reach the point where an ethics complaint is needed. Okay, we have something like an 89% success rate with our ombudsman program. It's been really helpful, really beneficial, but we'll offer that first. Now, the ombudsman is going to try and again resolve the issue, but they're not there to make any determinations. They're not there to say that a person was unethical or that they violated an article or articles of the code of ethics. They're there to help kind of bridge the gap. A lot of times these issues arise from a lack of communication, and then that leads to frustration. So the ombudsman is there to help kind of remedy that lack of communication. So they're going to answer general questions. They're going to talk about business how-tos and ethical practices, but again, they're never going to make a determination. They're never going to say, yeah, this person was being unethical. They're never going to tell us anything. So they come back to professional standards and they don't tell us what was discussed. All they tell us is the issue was resolved, the issue was not resolved. And then that'll let us know if we have to move forward with the complaint and move the paperwork along. So everything is confidential every step of the way. The other thing I want to point out is in professional standards, it's one and done, meaning if someone served as the ombudsman, they are not going to touch that complaint again. They're not going to be on the grievance committee. They're not going to be on the hearing panel. The complaint is only, kind of touched by that person once and never again in the process, so that we avoid the appearance of bias. So with the ombudsman, the complainant doesn't have to accept the service. The complainant can tell us, I'm not interested in ombudsman. I don't think it's going to be beneficial. I don't think it's going to help. I want to go ahead and file an ethics complaint. So they can deny the option. The complaint will move forward until it is withdrawn by the complainant. Sometimes, because this is a process and it takes time, with time people cool off and then they decide they don't want to do it anymore. They don't want to move forward anymore. They, need to tell us, because we will continue to move it forward and schedule a hearing and get 5 panel members and go through the whole process, because we must do so unless we are formally told otherwise by the complainant. The complainant can resubmit the original complaint if they refuse to comply with the terms of a mutually agreed on resolution. So even if they went through ombudsman and they felt that it resolved the issue, they could take time, something else could happen, and they can decide, you know what, I'm not okay with the resolution, I'm going to go back and file a complaint. It is their right to do so. So the ombudsman is not going to talk to the grievance committee. Like I told you, they don't even talk to us as association staff. They don't talk to the grievance committee about what happened. They don't go to DBPR. They don't go to FREC. They don't go to anyone. That conversation stays there. And again, this is to ensure that the process is impartial. This is to make sure that there's no bias. So this is a little visual. Okay, we talked about the beginning, ombudsman. Did it resolve the issue? Yes, that's where it ends, although they still can come back and file a complaint anyway. Ombudsman resolve the issue? No, then it's going to go ahead to the grievance committee, who is going to look for the possibility that a violation occurred. So what's the grievance committee going to do? They're going to ask, is the complaint a violation of the articles that are cited? And they do have like a little, not a checklist, but they do have like a list of questions that they'll consider while they're looking at each complaint to determine if it should move forward to a hearing or not. Okay, so the grievance committee is focusing on the person's actions and conduct and the possibility that they were acting unethically and potentially violating articles. They don't make any determinations, meaning they don't decide if a person did or didn't violate the articles. What they're going to look at is, was the complaint in proper form? Like I mentioned, we use an online system. That system assures that that complaint is filed with the correct initial form. They're going to make sure the right parties are named. Did they name people but not talk about them in the summary, or did they talk about people in the summary that they didn't add to the complaint? They're going to make sure that it was filed in a timely manner. The magic number in professional standards is 180 days. And so there are 180 days that a person has either from the moment they realize that something happened or the transaction closed, whichever is later. Association staff helps them with litigation searches. So we make sure that there is no pending litigation in Dade, Broward, or Palm Beach. And that doesn't mean that the complaint can't be filed. It just simply means that we are going to hold it in abeyance. So the grievance committee will usually hold it in abeyance, basically pause the process until the civil litigation has concluded. We make sure we have enough people for a hearing panel, which again is 5 people. And then the grievance committee makes sure that the right articles are named, and they'll go ahead and amend or delete articles as needed. Maybe they'll ask or request an MLS audit, but they'll go ahead and review the complaint and determine, based on what we're being told, could something unethical have happened? Does it seem like it happened? If they don't think that something unethical occurred, they'll go ahead and dismiss it. If they do think something unethical occurred, they'll go ahead and forward it to an ethics hearing, and then association staff will let the parties know what has happened with the complaint. And if it's moving forward, they'll let the respondent know, which is the person it was filed against, so that they can provide their response. The grievance committee can dismiss the ethics complaint, and that can be appealed. So if it is dismissed and the person does not agree with the grievance committee, they can go ahead and appeal it and explain why they don't agree, but they can only use information that was submitted. They cannot add information. All right, so the grievance committee looks at it, they dismiss it, that's where it ends, or the person appeals it, or they can refile. Yes, it goes to a hearing. All right, so if it goes to a hearing, what happens at the hearing? It is what they call a full due process hearing. It is to make sure that the process is fair, unbiased, and impartial. And the hearing panel is there to determine whether a violation of the code of ethics occurred or not. So we're looking at a panel of 5 people, 5 realtor members. These are people who volunteer to serve. By the way, our ombudsman, our grievance committee, our mediators, and our panel members for hearings are all serving on a volunteer basis. And they are all realtors like you, and they are volunteering of their time to make sure that these processes are enforced, and that we are kind of making sure that they have all the tools necessary to make sure that realtors are behaving ethically and doing what they're supposed to do. So the respondents are obviously considered innocent unless proven otherwise through the hearing, and the burden of proof has to be clear, strong, and convincing. So it has to be pretty solid evidence for the panel to then make a decision in either direction. So what happens at a hearing? As I mentioned, there's a panel of 5 people. It's minimum 3. We have a chairperson that reads a script. The same script is read each and every time so that the same procedure is followed each and every time. Each party is allowed to make an opening statement where they summarize what happened, and then each side is allowed to present their case. So when the complainant, who's the one that filed the complaint, presents all of their information, they've loaded documents into the system and they've discussed everything, and maybe they have witnesses, they'll go ahead and give their whole side. And then the respondent, who is the person that the complaint was filed against, can go ahead and ask them questions. And the panel can go ahead and ask them questions. They can cross-examine. Then it switches. The respondent is allowed to present their case, to present all their documentation, to present all their witnesses. And then they will be questioned by the complainant and or the panel. Each side gets to make a closing argument. The parties are dismissed. And then the panel will stay behind in executive session to determine if there was a violation. And by the way, a person could have, been cited for potentially violating Articles 1, 2, and 3. It's not all or nothing. They could find them in violation of one, but not the others. But they'll go ahead and discuss everything that happened in the hearing and everything that was submitted. People can have attorneys, or they can have realtor counsel, like their broker there. It's a whole hearing, right? But it's not like a court of law. It's a little different. So what can the panel decide to do if someone violated the code of ethics? These are their options. They can issue a letter of warning, and that's where it ends. The letter of warning stays on the person's file for a year. And again, this is confidential. And basically it stays on file. And if they do something else in that year, well, then if they're found in violation again, the discipline will progressively start to get stricter and more harsh. So a letter of warning is just that. It warns them, and that's all that would be issued. The other option that the panel has is a letter of reprimand. And with a letter of reprimand, they can then add on things like fines and additional attendance of educational seminars and what have you. So they can fine you up to $15,000. They can require you to attend certain educational courses and seminars. They can tell you to go take MLS classes, to come take code of ethics, to go do an online course. They'll tell you what to take and how long you have to comply. They can suspend or terminate your membership. They can suspend or terminate your access to the MLS. And then, of course, they're going to ask you to cease or refrain from continued conduct that's deemed unethical. There are also administrative processing fees, $250 for the first violation or $500 for every violation thereafter. Now, they can, parties can appeal the decision, but they can only appeal the decision based on procedural deficiencies or a lack of due process. So what that means is that the ethics appeal cannot be just because they don't agree with the decision the panel made. It can only be if there was some part of the procedure that was skipped. Someone wasn't given an opportunity to do something, to say something, to ask a question, present information. It could be because they, misapplied the code of ethics or misinterpreted the code of ethics. And it could be the nature or gravity of the discipline. Maybe the party feels that the discipline was too harsh. Before I move on to arbitration and mediation, does anyone have any questions on what I explained regarding the ombudsman program and the ethics complaints? I mean, and this is a general overview. I think that's much more detailed than this, but this is just a nice little general recap. All right. So let's talk about arbitration. Remember that arbitration is tied to Article 17. And so Article 17 and the standards of practice outline the parameters for filing requests for arbitration. Arbitrations can be filed, or the requests can be filed when there is a contractual dispute involving money that arises out of a real estate transaction. You can't come ask for us to arbitrate some situation that occurred between you and your plumber. Okay. Now, requests for arbitration are made broker to broker. So your broker must be the one to file against the other broker. And then you, again, are involved as the agent who was a party in the transaction. Someone left an upside down smiley face in the chat. That's usually most of my days in professional standards. Upside down smiley faces. So we start with mediation. We have mandatory mediation at the association. Someone files a request for arbitration. The request for arbitration will go through to the grievance committee. They'll go through a checklist of questions, and then they'll go ahead and move it on to mediation. There's a $500 filing fee for each side, for both the complainant and the respondent. Mediation is, again, meant to resolve the issue before it makes it to an arbitration hearing. So the mediation officer, again, they're neutral. They don't know the parties. They're not tied to either one of the parties, and they are working towards a resolution. They are helping the parties hopefully negotiate some sort of, make their way to basically like middle ground. They're going to explain the mediation to the parties. They're going to allow each party to make their statements. They're going to help identify the issues that arose. They're going to let the parties talk to each other. And then they're going to caucus. So we do everything on Zoom. So when we're allowing for caucus, what we do is we put each party and or their agents or attorneys in a breakout room. And then we have the mediator jump from breakout room to breakout room, hopefully helping them negotiate to a point where they both agree. If they do reach a resolution, then that's where it ends. And here's the visual again. So that's where it ends. And they are both given their $500 filing fee. So they both get their money back. And then whatever, let's say they decided to split, to split the money that was in question 50-50. They'll go ahead and solve that, and then they will each get their filing fee back from the association. If it is not resolved in mediation, it will go and move into an arbitration hearing. So again, an arbitration is related to a dispute tied to money that arises from a real estate transaction. There is a checklist of questions that the panel will go through. So of course, they're going to make sure that the right people have been named, broker to broker. They're going to make sure that it's within 180 days of the transaction closing or the discovery. The association helps with the litigation searches. We make sure we have enough people for a panel, and then they will also look at, is the right party names, the deadline, is there pending litigation, is it too legally complex, is the amount involved too large or too small, and they'll go ahead and go through the checklist. Once they've gone through the checklist and they have made sure it was filed in a timely manner, it's going to go ahead through mediation and to the arbitration hearing. So what happens at an arbitration hearing? It is structured the same way as an ethics hearing, but with the ethics hearing, they are focused on behavior. With arbitration hearings, they are focused on where the money should be awarded. Okay. So parties make opening statements, the complainant and the respondent. The complainant gets to present their case, their witnesses, their documents. Again, if they have an attorney, maybe the attorney does that. Attorneys are not required, but they are an option. It is your right to hire an attorney if you'd like and to be represented by legal counsel. And then once they are done, they are cross-examined by the other party and or the panel. And then the other party gets to do the same thing, present their information, their documentation, their witnesses, etc. And then they are cross-examined by the other party or the panel. They make their closing arguments and then they're dismissed, and the panel will review all the documentation and testimony to determine who should be awarded the money. They also determine if filing fees should be returned and to whom. So once they do that, the panel determines who the prevailing party is. The amount cannot be more than what was requested. It can be less, but it's not going to be more. And instead of an appeal here, it's called a procedural review. A question we get asked, or that I've been asked, is, well, what happens if the person doesn't pay? At that point, you, according to the manual, you then go to court. You must take them to court because we've reached the end of the road procedurally with what we can do, according to NAR. So the procedural review is the arbitration's version of an appeal, and it is only based off of a procedural deficiency. So it is not going to be because of like, hey, I don't want to pay the money. It's, oh, I had a witness and I wanted the witness to speak and they didn't let me bring my witness in, right? As an example. All right. Any questions on mediations and arbitrations before I jump into some of these case interpretations? All right. Moving along. So case interpretations. Let's see, what time is it? 12:14. Let's do a couple of these. I'm not going to do all of them. Feel free to read them. There's a ton of case interpretations on NAR's site. But there are a few that I do want to highlight for you today. So, let's go ahead and, all right, this is a good one. This is regarding Article 4, which remember was about disclosing any personal interest you may have in a property or a transaction when you are presenting offers or selling properties, listing them. And so in this situation, Article 4, this is a case interpretation, again, directly from NAR. And in this case interpretation, it discusses how Client A contacted Realtor B to list a vacant lot. Client A said he had heard that similar lots in the vicinity had sold for about $150,000 and thought he should be able to get a similar price. Realtor B stressed some minor disadvantages in location and grade of the lot and said the market for vacant lots was sluggish. He suggested listing at a price of $97,500 and the client agreed. In 2 weeks, Realtor B came to client A with an offer at the listed price of $97,500. The client raised some questions about it, pointing out that the offer had come in just 2 weeks after the property had been placed on the market, which could be an indication that the lot was worth closer to $150,000 than $97,500. Realtor B strongly urged him to accept the offer, stating that because of the sluggish market, another offer might not develop for months, and that the offer in hand simply vindicated Realtor B's own judgment in pricing the lot. Client A finally agreed, and the sale was made to buyer C. 2 months later, client A discovered the lot was no longer owned by buyer C, but had been purchased by buyer D at $165,000. He investigated and found that buyer C was a brother-in-law of Realtor B and that buyer C had acted on behalf of Realtor B in buying the property for $97,500. Client A outlined the facts in a complaint to the Association of Realtors, charging Realtor B with collusion and betrayal of a client's confidence and interests, and with failing to disclose that he was buying the property on his own behalf. At a hearing before a panel of the Professional Standards Committee, Realtor B's defense was that in his observation of real estate transactions, there can be two legitimate prices of property: the price that a seller is willing to take in order to liquidate his investment, and the price that a buyer is willing to pay to acquire a property in which he is particularly interested. His position was that he saw no harm in bringing about a transaction to his own advantage in which the seller received a price that he was willing to take and the buyer paid a price that he was willing to pay. So in the chat, I want you to let me know, do you think Realtor B is in violation of the Code of Ethics? Okay, very quickly seeing that a lot of you are jumping in to say yes. Some of you are a little more emphatic than others about it, but I'm seeing a whole lot of yeses. All right. Perfect. So you guys are correct. The hearing panel concluded that Realtor B had deceitfully used the guise of rendering professional service to a client and acting as a speculator, that he had been unfaithful to the most basic principles of agency and allegiance to his client's interests, and that he had violated Articles 1 and 4 of the Code of Ethics. So this was a double whammy. All right. Article 6 was about no hidden fees, making sure that your customers understand whatever you're collecting, where it's going, and that there's a clear paper trail, that nothing is being hidden from them. So in this case interpretation, Realtor A property manager, bought at wholesale prices janitorial supplies used in cleaning and maintenance of an office building, which he managed for his client, owner B. In his statements to owner B, he billed these supplies at retail prices. Realtor A's practice came to the attention of owner B, who filed a complaint with the local Association of Realtors, charging Realtor A with unethical conduct in violation of Article 6 of the Code of Ethics. In questioning during the hearing called by the association's Professional Standards Committee, Realtor A's defense was that the prices at which he billed these supplies to his client were no higher than the prices which owner B had been paying prior to putting the property under Realtor A's management. It was clearly established that no disclosure of this profit or supplies used in property management had been made, and also that in proposing the management contract, Realtor A had held out to owner B the inducement of attainable economies in operation. Do you think that Realtor A violated the Code of Ethics? A whole lot of yes. I saw one no. Some of you might be on the fence. Some of you aren't sure, that's fine. But the majority of you seem to be leaning toward this being a violation of the Code of Ethics. So this was in fact a violation of Article 6 because they did not explain clearly to their customer how they were being billed and that there was an additional profit being made. All right, Article 11. Let's skip that one. Article 12. All right, let's talk about this one. So Article 12, remember Article 12 is about being truthful in your real estate communications, in your advertising, in your marketing, and making sure that everybody knows that you're a realtor. So in this one, prospect A observed a sign on a vacant lot reading for sale, call 330-5215. Thinking he would be dealing with a for sale by owner, he called the number on the sign. He was surprised that the lot was exclusively listed by Realtor A and the telephone number on the sign was the home number of Realtor B in Realtor A's office. Prospect A filed a complaint against Realtor A and Realtor B, alleging a violation of Article 12 of the Code of Ethics. At the hearing, Realtor A stated that he permitted Realtor B to put up the sign. Realtor B's defense was that the sign was not a formal advertisement, such as an online advertisement, business card, or billboard to which he understood Article 12 to apply. So do we think Realtor A and or B are in violation of the Code of Ethics? This is a sharp group. You guys are quick to answer. And I'm seeing a lot of yeses. Yeah. So the hearing panel determined that the sign was an advertisement within the meaning of Article 12 and its use violated the article of the code, and both of them were found in violation of Article 12. All right. Article 16. We went through Article 16. We had a video from FR. And I promise you that after we go through this case interpretation, half of you will think it's a violation and half of you will think it is not a violation. So let's go ahead and talk about this case interpretation. At the conclusion of a detailed listing presentation, Realtor B asked the sellers whether they had any questions. No, said Seller Z, your presentation was professional and complete. We very much appreciate your time. We have appointments with 2 other firms, and after we talk to them, we'll make our decision. Realtor B thanked the sellers and encouraged them to contact him with any questions they might have. I really look forward to being your broker, he added. Several days later, Realtor B noticed that Seller Z's property had come on the market listed with Realtor A. Realtor B and Realtor A were friends, but were also quite competitive, both frequently pursuing the same potential seller clients. Realtor B called Seller Z and asked, what I'd like to know is why you chose to give your listing to Realtor A instead of me. Don't get me wrong, Realtor A is a good broker and will do a good job for you. I'm not suggesting you cancel your listing with Realtor A, but if your listing expires and Realtor A hasn't sold it, I'd be pleased to talk to you about listing with me. Seller Z did not follow up on Realtor B's offer. And the following weekend at Realtor A's open house, Seller Z and his wife recounted Realtor B's follow-up phone call. Over the next few days, Realtor A debated filing an ethics complaint. He weighed his friendship with Realtor B against what he saw as his duty to bring potentially unethical conduct to the attention of the Association of Realtors. Somewhat reluctantly, he filed an ethics complaint alleging a violation of Article 16 as interpreted by Standard of Practice 1613. At the hearing, Realtor A called Seller Z as a witness. Seller Z faithfully recounted the substance of Realtor B's conversation with Seller Z and his wife, commenting that while Realtor B had said he was only trying to understand why he hadn't been given the listing, it appeared to Seller Z that Realtor B wanted Seller Z to cancel his listing with Realtor A. Then Realtor B testified in his own defense. He acknowledged he had been aware that Realtor A had already exclusively listed the property when he contacted Seller Z and asked for a follow-up appointment. He defended his actions, stating he was not trying to induce Seller Z to cancel the listing. He was simply trying to find out what he had said or failed to say that led Seller Z, that led Seller Z to list with Realtor A instead of with him. and wanted seller Z and his wife to be fully aware of the services he would provide if their listing with Realtor A expired. Do we think that this realtor violated the code of ethics? Yes or no? And as predicted, I'm seeing some yes and some no. I warned you guys it would be torn. This usually leads to like half and half. Excuse me. All right. So the chat has slowed down with the responses. Now, the article that was mentioned was Article 16, which we've talked about how highly misunderstood it is. But we're going to go ahead and look at Standard of Practice 1613, because when the realtor filed the complaint, he filed it listing Article 16 and using Article 1613 as a support. Okay. 1613 states, all dealings concerning property exclusively listed or with buyer tenants who are subject to an exclusive agreement shall be carried on with the client's representative or broker and not with the client, except with the consent of the client's representative or broker, or except where such dealings are initiated by the client. So having read that, do we still think that this is a violation of Article 16 or not? Okay, so again, for those of you that still say no, we have a situation where although the realtor just wanted feedback on why he didn't get the listing, according to the Code of Ethics, it specifically states that communication should be carried, excuse me, carried on with the client's representative or broker and not with the client. Had they gone through their friend, right? They're supposed to be friends. So if he had gone to his friend and said, listen, congrats on the listing, would you mind asking them why they didn't go with me, or asking them for feedback? That would have been different. The standard of practice also clarifies and says that it's okay if the client or customer had initiated the contacts, right? Because it goes on to say, except where such dealings are initiated by the client. So if the customers had been the one to reach out and say, listen, we went with someone else, this is why we didn't choose you, that would have been different as well. It's not the context, right? It's not what he was asking for, because asking for feedback is innocent enough. It's how he went about asking for the feedback that became an issue. He should have gone through the agent or waited for the listing to expire, at which point there's no longer an exclusive agreement, right? So the issue here is not what he was asking, but how he went about asking it. Okay, and I hope that clarified it for some of you that still felt like it wasn't an issue. I mean, you can just, they said that they were friends in the case interpretation, so he could have just gone to his friend and said, hey, you know, I saw you got the listing, I had talked to them, would you mind like getting some feedback for me? That would have been different. Could have just emailed him, texted him, and been like, hey, do you mind? All right. See, Article 16 continues to be a tricky one for everybody. So yes, this is a violation. The hearing panel did not agree with Realtor B's defense, noting that Realtor B's curiosity or desire to enhance his listing presentation skills did not justify continued contact with a potential seller client after that seller had entered into an exclusive representation agreement with another broker. Realtor B was found in violation of Article 16 as interpreted by Standard of Practice 1613. What a friend, right? All right, guys. So we're going to move on to pathways to professionalism. And before we do so, I want to give you another 5-minute stretch break. I know it's not easy to sit here for such an extended amount of time going through the presentation on Zoom. So we're going to take another 5-minute stretch break. It is 12:30. Let's go ahead and make sure that we are back on screen by 12:35. And don't forget, those cameras need to be on.
We're on break. We'll be shortly back. Welcome back, Melissa. No worries.
All right. So that's it for the 5-minute stretch break. Let's go ahead and tackle the last part of the presentation, which is pathways to professionalism. And then Once I wrap up, Connie will jump back on and you guys will take your pledge and you'll be all set. You'll be good to go. So let's talk about this last part, which is, like I said, pathways to professionalism and marketing using the code of ethics. All right. So why is the code of ethics so important, aside from the fact that there's an entire procedure to enforce it and whatnot? It's going to give you a competitive advantage over those who are maybe disregarding the code of ethics. And so you're going to provide the best service because of it. Your customers will be getting information clearly communicated to them in a timely fashion, which is, of course, always important. And then as you grow your business, maybe you end up mentoring another agent or starting a team, or maybe even your own brokerage, you can use it to start training your new agents. So it's going to serve as a reminder to always behave professionally and ethically. So in terms of your behavior, sorry about that, my mouse is going a little crazy again. In terms of your behavior, you can also use it to guide whether or not you choose to move forward as you work with someone, and it could shape how that transaction moves forward. It's available in 15 different languages on NAR's website, so you can use it with your customers, and you can go ahead and share it with them in their preferred language so that they know exactly what to expect and what is and isn't acceptable. All right, so social media and code of ethics on Article 12. We talked about a little bit earlier about Article 12, and Article 12 extends to the accuracy of information, right? I mentioned posts, and I mentioned how we need to be mindful of updating what we're posting and what we're saying, so that it is accurate and up to date. And you also have to remind your customers to be mindful of what they are posting, which is why I had recommended that they share or repost whatever you've posted. And that way, when you edit or delete it, when it's no longer relevant, it will also disappear from whatever they've posted, so that you can help kind of keep things regulated. Okay, so you can use the code of ethics as a marketing tool. Like I said, you can give it to your customers. It's available in 15 different languages. It's going to show your customers exactly what to expect and the level of professionalism that you'll be providing. You can print it out, you can email it, you can customize it. You're going to get your realtor pin. You're more than welcome to stop at any of our office locations and pick up your realtor pin. We have them for you. And you can also, if you need to, maybe reference the code of ethics in your professional correspondence if you feel that the situation calls for it. Okay, so here are some tips to professionalism. We have follow the golden rule. We've talked about this a few times. Treat other people the way you would like to be treated. Show courtesy and respect to everyone. Communicate with all parties in a timely fashion. I always like to recommend that you explain to people your preferred method of communication and how long you take to respond. So for example, because I'm usually in hearings or I'm on Zoom, calling me is not the best way to get a hold of me. And so I'll tell people, you know, if you need me, email me or text me. And then if you need to talk to me as soon as I'm out of the meeting, out of the hearing, I can go ahead and call you, hopefully by the end of the day. If you make it very clear what your preferred method of communication is and what your response time is like, it helps circumvent the frustration that leads to an ombudsman and or an ethics complaint sometimes. People will not be as quick to get frustrated if they know, oh, they told me that they can take like a day or two to respond if they're really busy, right? So make sure that people know what your preferred method of communication is, how long you take to respond. Maybe ask other people when you start interacting, hey, how would you like me to communicate with you? How long does it generally take you to respond? And that way everybody is pretty clear from the beginning about what communication will look like and what response times will look like. Always present a professional appearance. I would have you defer to your broker as to how they would like you to present yourself and dress when you are acting as, an agent for their brokerage. You're representing them as well. Be aware of and meet all deadlines, obviously, and then be aware of and respectful of all cultural differences. Something that might seem really innocent in one culture might be disrespectful to another. So just be mindful of those differences so that you can respect everyone. Okay, so let's talk about respect for property, respect for the public, and respect for your peers. Respect for property. Be responsible. Keep everyone together. Don't let people wander around a property unattended. Don't give them access, unaccompanied access. Make sure that you are there or that another agent is there if you are unable to go to that showing or show that property at that time. Make sure you have permission to enter the property. Just because there's a Supra lockbox on the door and you have an e-key on your phone does not mean you should access the lockbox and enter the property. Not only is this dangerous, but it is also a violation of our MLS rules and regulations, and it is a violation, a potential violation of one of the articles, or actually a couple of the articles of the Code of Ethics. So please make sure that you have permission, that you're looking at those showing instructions, and that you are accessing the property on whatever terms are set forth by the listing agent and or the owner. Contact the listing agent or broker if something seems wrong, something seems off, something seems broken. Be considerate of seller's property, be considerate of their property, whether they're there or not, because a lot of people have cameras. Use the sidewalks, don't walk all over the grass and the landscaping. If it's raining, dry off, try not to track water and mud into the property. Avoid cell phone distractions. I know it's really easy to want to jump on your cell phone and answer a text message really quickly, but maybe, have those preset messages ready to go so that you can shoot off a response that says you're busy and I'll get back to them later. Be alert to avoid the unexpected. Maybe the owners are there, maybe there are kids running around, pets, an alarm system. Just be on your toes. Practice respect when the owner is home, even when they're not. They have cameras. Be mindful of what you're saying. Be mindful of what your customers are saying, because you don't want anything to come back and bite you. But respect for the property, right? We move on to, let me check the chat because I see that the chat has. And I'm not sure I understand what you're trying to say. So if you could rephrase that, that would be great. But I feel like there's something missing in what you were trying to say. So I don't want to answer just yet. Respect for the public. Make sure that you identify that you are a realtor, right? That you identify that you are working in that professional capacity. Leave your business card with permission. I've gone to restaurants and found business cards in napkin holders or in like the little carousels that have the ketchup and the mustard. Please ask for permission first. A lot of restaurants that do allow for you to leave business promotional materials have like a table or a bulletin board. So please ask for permission. Encourage customers of other agents to direct questions to that agent. You might have someone that tells you, listen, I've been trying to talk to my agent, they don't answer me, and they're frustrated and they're worried. You need to redirect them back to their agent. And if their agent isn't responding, please redirect them to speak to the broker of that agent. Okay, as you saw with Article 16, you have to be very mindful of how you communicate with another agent's customer. Don't tell people what you think, tell them what you know. Be careful with the opinions that you volunteer. Is this a safe neighborhood? Is that a good school? Tell them what you know. Tell them that you can give them resources and then grant them access to those resources, give them those reports and allow them to formulate their own opinions. So tell them what you know. I know that these reports can help you make a determination. Leave your opinion out of it. Try to maintain your neutrality so that you can avoid potential issues. Respond promptly to inquiries. Again, If you are very clear about how you communicate and how long you take to respond, it helps a lot. So respond promptly and make sure that you are clear about what that communication with you looks like. Call if you're delayed or need to reschedule. That seems like common sense, right? If you are going to a showing, some of these listing agents are there for every single showing. And so now their time, which is also valuable, is being wasted because you're delayed and you're not saying anything, or you should have rescheduled and you didn't do so. Explain why you're canceling, explain why you need to reschedule. Communicate clearly. Avoid jargon or slang. So communicate clearly and directly, communicate professionally, schedule appointments as far in advance as possible, and promise only what you can deliver. Don't tell your customer, yeah, I can get us a showing for that property, you know, today at 3, and you haven't even called, texted, or emailed the listing agent. So be mindful of that. Don't make promises that you can't keep. So I'm going back to the chat because I had asked for some clarification. Anna, in terms of like going into the property, if you're there a little early, it could depend on how their schedule is set up. I would just run it by them like, hey, I want to go by at this time, but if I'm there like 5 to 10 minutes earlier, is that an issue? Someone else might be inside, you know? Can you tell them schools are A schools if the reports indicate they are? Give them the report and allow them to review it for themselves. Okay, give them, RPR has a great report. Before I forget, it gives you information on public, charter, and private schools. And it includes, you know, a wealth of information. You can have it pull schools that are within a certain radius of the property that you're looking at, give them that report, and then allow them to come to their own conclusions. All right, so respect for your peers. Let your peers know that you are also a realtor. Promptly and courteously respond to other agents' communications. Notify listing brokers if there is inaccurate information in the listing. If you do not want to do so, you can go ahead and use on the MLS when you're looking at the full listing details, there's a row of small icons along the top. And in that row, right in the middle, there is a yellow triangle. It looks like a caution sign. You can use that to anonymously report potential MLS errors and or violations. So if you don't want to contact the listing agent and or broker, you can go ahead and report it that way, and our MLS department will handle it. Share important information with other agents. Are there pets on the property? Is there a security system? Is there a gate? Do you need to say something to the security guard? Is there a special code that you need? Make sure that everything that person has all the tools that they need to show the property. Show courtesy, trust, and respect to other agents. Avoid inappropriate use of endearments or language that may be culturally insensitive. Again, something that seems really innocent, not a big deal to one culture, might be to another. Don't prospect at another agent's open house. If you go to someone else's open house, that is not the time or place for you to go fishing for new customers, right? You're there to see the property. And then return keys promptly after a showing. So there's a story that I was told ages ago, and I tell the story at every new member orientation. There was a member years and years ago, took the keys out of the super lock box, showed the property, and then when they went to leave, someone else was coming up the walkway and said, oh, I'm going to show the property next. So go ahead, give the keys to that person, and as it turns out, the keys went missing, something happened at the property, police reports were filed, locks had to be changed, and it was this whole thing. They were just trying to be nice, but remember that super tracks when you access the lockbox and when you put the keys back, so when you open and close it. If someone is walking up and they have the next appointment, put the keys back in the lockbox and tell them, good luck with your appointment. I went ahead and put the keys back in the lockbox. You know, if they need help opening the lockbox, they use their e-key, and you can, you know, show them how to open it, but they have to use their e-key so that the lockbox timestamps that they then accessed it. and when they opened and closed it. Someone in the chat said, same as crime reports. Yes, there are websites out there that can generate and tell people what the crime stats are in an area. So give them those websites and then let them run their own searches. Prospecting at new construction. Well, that's a little different. I think you would have to talk to the new construction company, right? And see, because they have their own agreements that they have with agents. And so you would need to talk to each company and see how they feel about that prospecting situation. All right, and I am officially done with Code of Ethics and Pathways to Professionalism. Again, this is my contact information at the top of the slide, but you can reach all 3 professional standards admins by emailing professionalstandards@miamire.com. We would be happy to help. Do not leave. I appreciate your patience and your time, but do not leave. Connie is going to jump back on and she's going to do the Realtor Pledge with you next. But before I jump off, congratulations. Welcome to the industry. We hope to see you. We have a Biz After Hours networking event coming up in May 4th. May the 4th be with you. So join us, come hang out, come meet me and a few other Miami professionals. But Connie, it's time for the pledge.
All righty. I didn't want to take away, make sure that they have a minute and take a picture of the info. There you go. You stopped. All righty. Let me go ahead and share the pledge. I had it up. All right. Let me open it up. And let me go ahead and watch you guys because I didn't have a view of everyone. And now I'm going to ask you to virtually raise your right hand. And we're going to do this together. I am a realtor. I pledge myself to protect the individual right of real estate ownership and to widen the opportunity to enjoy it. Even if your audio isn't on, please repeat. So say that first line. I'm looking. Let's go ahead and you can unmute yourself if you want to participate live. I'm going to do it one more time. I pledge myself.
I pledge
myself.
That's what I wanted.
Pledge myself.
Individual right of real estate ownership and to widen the
Individual right of ownership.
Manner to represent my clients better and knowledge of my competency, my knowledge and honesty.
Towards all in the spirit
of all my community, of the realtors,
all my community,
of the realtors
my
code.
country.
Looking to observe the realtor's code and its requirements.
Congratulations.
Represent my clients with my knowledge and competence to obey the spirit of the code of ethics, serve the spirit of code of ethics, and conform my conduct.
Community.
Congratulations, everyone. I wanted to say that that was probably the most animated one that we've done on Zoom. It's amazing. Congratulate you all. We are finished. If you are interested, I'm not sure if Maggie mentioned the pin or not, but you can visit any one of our locations to pick up a pin. You can call beforehand to make sure they have it. And we do want to welcome you to Miami and congratulate you on being realtors and happy many sales. Thank you so much for being Miami members. And we hope to see you soon in class. And as Maggie said, at one of our events. Congratulations.